Baby, I always thought the hardest part of motherhood was raising M. Turns out, it's watching M grow up and forget who raised M. My name's May Delilah Parker, born and raised right here in Savannah, Georgia. I'm 63 years old, and for most of my life, I've been what folks call a steady woman. I ain't rich, but I ain't never been poor in spirit either. I keep my little house clean, my soul prayed up, and my fridge stocked with enough leftovers to feed whoever shows up at my door hungry. You see, I only got one child, my son, Marcus. Lord knows that boy was my pride and joy. I had him when I was just 23, back when I still believed life was gone. Nah, be easy if you just worked hard and loved deep. His daddy, Raymond Parker, left when Marcus was 3. Raymond was the kind of man who could charm the devil into signing up for church choir. All smiles, all talk, no follow-through. He said he was going out to find better work in Atlanta. I ain't seen him since. So it was just me and my baby boy. I worked double shifts at the Magnolia Diner, serving sweet tea and grits to folks who didn't even tip right. But every dime I made, I saved it for Marcus's new shoes, school trips, birthday cakes, and later, his college fund. That boy was smart, too. He'd sit up at night doing his homework at the kitchen table while I washed dishes, telling me, Mama, one day I'ma buy you a big house with one of them wraparound porches, and I'd smile and say, Baby, all I need is you sitting next to me on mine. When Marcus got that scholarship to Morehouse College, I cried for 2 days straight. Not out of sadness, out of pride. I packed his bags myself, ironed his shirts, even tucked a Bible and $20 in the pocket of his jeans. He kissed my forehead before he left and said, Don't worry, Mama. I'ma make you proud. And he did, Lord. He really did. He graduated, got himself a job at a bank in Atlanta, and every Sunday he'd call me like clockwork. Sometimes he'd talk for hours, telling me about his coworkers, his boss, even about a young lady he'd met, Keisha. Now Keisha ... Well, from the way he talked, I thought she was something special. He said she was ambitious, driven, modern. I didn't know what all that meant, but he sounded happy, so I was happy. First time he brought her down to Savannah for Thanksgiving, I cooked up a feast that could have fed the whole neighborhood turkey. Cornbread stuffing, collard greens, sweet potato pie, the works. When she walked in, I remember thinking how pretty she was. Tall, fine-featured, had that city polish about her. She hugged me, polite, called me Miss Parker. Not Mama, but I told myself that was just nerves. Marcus was grinning ear to ear, sighing, Keisha. This the woman I've been telling you about? My mama, the real boss. She laughed a little, but I could see something in her eyes. That kind of quiet judgment city folks get when they visit us small-town people. I brushed it off all through dinner. She talked about her career, real estate, luxury homes, how she wanted to upgrade her lifestyle. I smiled and nodded, but a piece of me wondered if she and my son wanted the same kind of life. That night, after they left to stay at a hotel, I sat at my kitchen table with my cup of chamomile tea and said to myself, May, don't you start judging. You raised a good boy. He'll choose. Right? For the next year or so, everything seemed fine. They were living together, saving for a place, traveling a bit. I'd see pictures of them on Facebook, her in designer dresses, him in fitted suits. I didn't say much, just liked every post because I wanted him to know I was proud. Then one day, that boy called me and said words I never thought I'd hear. Mama, me, and Keisha eloped. Just like that. No, we're getting married soon. No, save the date. No, would you bless this union. Just we eloped. At first, I thought I misheard him. You what now? I asked, setting my coffee cup down real slow. We eloped, Mama. We didn't want to make it a big thing. You know how Keisha is about crowds and all that family drama? I didn't even realize I was holding my breath until my chest hurt. So, y'all got married without me there? It's not like that, he said, sounding defensive. We just wanted to keep it simple. Simple, I repeated, trying not to let my voice crack. Simple don't mean secret, Marcus. He sighed like I was being unreasonable. Mama, please, it's done. We're happy. I was going to tell you sooner, but what, baby? Keisha said it'd just be easier this way. Less stress. That's when it hit me like a punch to the gut. This woman, this stranger, had convinced my son that his own mama was stress. That night, I didn't sleep. I sat on the edge of my bed, staring at the photos of me and Marcus at his college graduation, his arm around my shoulder, both of us smiling so big. I whispered, "What happened to us, baby?" But of course, pictures don't talk back. Over the next few months, things got strange. Marcus called less. When he did, Keisha was always in the background, saying, "Tell your mom we'll visit soon." But they never did. I'd send birthday cards, Christmas gifts, even little boxers of homemade jam. Sometimes they'd say, "Thank you." Sometimes not even that. By the second year, I only saw my son twice. Once at a funeral, once when I drove up to Atlanta unannounced. They were living in some fancy condo downtown, marble counters, glass walls, and a view of the skyline. I remember walking in, feeling like I was trespassing in my own child's life. Keisha smiled that polite, tight-lipped smile again and said, "Oh, Mrs. Parker, what a surprise! She didn't even offer me a seat." Marcus looked nervous. He hugged me quick, said, "Mama, you should have called first." I said, "I did, baby. You just didn't pick up." We sat there awkward for a while, talking about weather and work. I brought him a jar of my homemade peach preserves. He thanked me, but when I was levying, I saw it sitting on the counter unopened, like it was nothing. That car ride home was the longest drive of my life. I cried the whole way to Savannah, not from anger, from grief. Grief for a boy who used to run through my kitchen barefoot. "Call in, Mama. What's for dinner?" Grief for the woman who used to believe love could hold a family together. But baby, that was only the beginning. Because what I couldn't even imagine was that Keisha had bigger plans. Plans that involved my son's money and my house. And before long, I'd learned the true meaning of betrayal. After that cold visit to Atlanta, I told myself I wasn't going to bother Marcus no more. I said, "May, let that boy live his life. You done raised him, you've done prayed for him, now let go." But, baby, it's easy to say, let go. It's a whole lot harder when you're the one who carried him under your heart for 9 months, worked double shifts to buy his first bike, and slept hungry sometimes so he could eat. So I still called, I still texted, I still sent him them good morning, baby messages. Most times he didn't answer, but I kept hoping. Then one day, about a year later, he finally called me. Sounded almost desperate. "Mama, can I come stay with you for a few days?" Now, when your grown child says something like that out of the blue, you know something's wrong. I said, "Of course, baby, you don't even gotta ask." When he pulled up that Friday night, I almost didn't recognize him. He looked tired, eyes sunken, shoulders heavy. That city shine he used to have was gone. He hugged me real long, like he was holding on to something solid for the first time in months. "What's going on, Marquez?" I asked him. "It's complicated," he said. "Can we just talk in the morning?" I didn't push. I just made him a plate baked chicken, rice, collards, and cornbread. He ate like he hadn't seen real food in weeks. The next morning, I found him sitting on the porch, staring at the pecan trees out back. He looked like a man who'd been fighting a war nobody else could see. "Mama," he said finally, "me and Keisha separated." Now, I ain't the kind to jump to "I told you so," so I just kept my voice soft. "I'm sorry to hear that, baby. What happened?" She's not who I thought she was," he started explaining. Turns out, Miss Keisha had been spending more money than he even knew he had. Fancy purses, designer shoes, weekends in Miami, all charged to his credit. He said when he tried to talk about budgets, she'd flip it back on him. "Don't you trust me? I'm your wife. But it got worse. He didn't even know about it till the collectors started Mama, she said it was for investment property, but it wasn't. I think she was trying to flip houses, and it went bad. Lord have mercy. I felt my stomach drop. That boy had worked his whole life to stay out of debt, and here this woman was dragging him under. But even then, I didn't speak no hate over her. I just said, you can stay here as long as you need. We'll figure this out. For the next few weeks, Marcus stayed with me, trying to get his life back together. He'd drive into town every day looking for extra work, help me in the garden in the evening, and talk about how maybe it was time to move back home for good. I started to believe maybe God was giving us a second chance. Then, one afternoon, I got a letter in the mail. Return address said Law Offices of Drummond and Pierce, Atlanta. At first, I thought maybe it was something about his job, but when I opened it, I nearly dropped my sweet tea. It was a notice of property claim. Apparently, Keisha had filed paperwork saying that Marcus' family home, my home, was part of their marital estate because Marcus had listed this address on some joint financial documents. She was claiming half ownership of the house I'd bought with my own two hands 35 years ago. I sat there, staring at that paper so long, my eyes went blurry. My hands started shaking. Oh, Lord, I whispered. She's trying to take my house. When Marcus got home, I showed him. He went pale. Mama, I swear I didn't know she'd do this. Baby, how could she? Because she's vindictive, he said, voice breaking. She said if I left her, she'd make me pay. I wanted to scream, but I didn't. Instead, I took a deep breath and said, then we fight, baby, but we fight with grace. We went to see Mr. Thompson, a local attorney who'd helped half of Savannah with their wills and disputes. He looked at the papers and said, Mrs. Parker, it's going to be tough. She's using the marital asset clause even though your son's name ain't on your deed. Her lawyer's arguing he had beneficial interest since he lived here temporarily. Beneficial interest, fancy words for she's trying to snatch what ain't hers. The next few months were hell. Letters from lawyers, calls from collectors, meetings that made my head spin. I spent $7,800 on legal fees. Money I'd been saving for retirement. Marcus was trying to pay me back, but he was barely keeping up with his own bills. Every night, I'd sit on that same porch, staring at the stars, asking God, what did I do to deserve this, Lord? I raised that boy, right? I never hurt nobody. Then one Sunday, just when I thought things couldn't get worse, Keisha herself showed up at my doorstep. She pulled up in some shiny black BMW, stepped out in heels too high for a gravel road, and strutted up my porch like she owned it. I opened the door, calm but firm. Well, if it ain't Mrs. Parker, she said, smiling that same fake smile, can we talk? I didn't invite her in, but she came in anyway, sat right there at my kitchen table like she'd been waiting on sweet tea. What do you want, Keisha? I asked. Closure, she said, and fairness. Fairness. Yes, ma'am. I gave Marcus the best years of my life. We built a lifestyle together. I deserve what's mine. I laughed, but not from humor, from disbelief. Baby, you built nothing. That house you sitting in was bought in 1989, long before you knew my son existed. She leaned in, voice cold. Well, maybe the court will see it different. For a moment, I thought I might just lose my religion right there, but something in me said, don't let the devil see you sweat. So I stood up, folded my arms, and said, Keisha, you can have your BMW, your handbags, your fake friends, and your city dreams, but you will not have my peace or my home. Then I pointed to the door, and baby, I have never in my life felt prouder than I did watching that woman stomp her heels back down my steps. The case dragged on for nearly a year. Marcus was torn up, guilt eating him alive. I told him, baby, forgiveness don't mean weakness, but you gonna have to forgive yourself, too. By God's grace and Mr. Thompson's hard work, the judge ruled that the property was solely mine, said there was no evidence of marital contribution. Keisha got nothing but her own debts to pay. When the ruling came, I just sat there in the courtroom, tears running down my face. Not from victory, from release. From the weight finally lifting off my chest, Marcus hugged me tight and whispered, "I'm so sorry, Mama." I said, "Don't be sorry, baby, just learn." He moved back home for a while after that, helped fix the porch, painted the shutters, even planted new roses by the mailbox. We didn't talk much about Keisha, but every now and then I'd catch him sitting quiet, staring out at the horizon like he was replaying every mistake. One night, he said, "Mama, I think I stayed with her 'cause I was scared to admit I picked wrong." I said, "We all pick wrong sometimes. The trick is, don't let the wrong pick change you." For the first time in years, peace came back into that house. But, baby, it came with a price. I'd lost money, sleep, and trust. But I'd gained clarity, the kind you only get when life shows you who is really in your corner. And I promised myself, from that day on, no matter who comes or goes, I'll never again shrink myself to make someone else comfortable. Not even for my own child. After that court battle, I swear my whole body just exhaled. You ever been holding something in so long, you forget what it feels like to breathe easy? That was me. For the first time in years, my house felt like home again. Not a courtroom exhibit, not a battleground, just home. The smell of fried okra back in the kitchen, gospel humming low on the radio, breeze drifting through lace curtains. Peace had a sound again, and it sounded like quiet. Marcus was still staying with me, trying to rebuild. Every morning, he'd get up early, make himself coffee, and sit out on that porch with his laptop. Said he was working on starting his own business, a small finance consultancy. I told him, "Baby, build it slow and steady. You done seeing what happens when folks try to skip steps." He nodded. "Yes, ma'am." He started going back to church with me at first he just came 'cause I asked, but after a while I saw something shift in him. He'd stand there in the pew beside me, eyes closed, hands up, singing them old hymns I used to hum when he was little. Sometimes we'd catch each other's eyes and just smile, no words. Just a quiet, "We made it." Now, Savannah folks talk, that news about Keisha and that whole ordeal had spread like butter on a hot biscuit. Some folks came round my porch, whispering gossip, trying to stir up old wounds. I just smiled and said, "Child, we pray for her. We don't play with her." And I meant it. I wasn't gonna let bitterness take root in my heart. I've seen too many women my age turn mean from holding on to what should Vivi been released. Not me. I'd rather grow old with laugh lines than worry lines. One evening, maybe 6 months after it all ended, I was sitting out back Shalene Peas when Marcus came out holding 2 mugs of cocoa. "You always did like cocoa better than coffee," he said, handed me a cup. MM's coffee makes my heart race faster than gossip at Sunday service." He laughed, and for the first time in a long while, it was a full laugh, the kind that comes from deep down. We sat there a while in silence, watching the sun melt behind the trees. Then he said something that near broke me and healed me all at once. "Mama, I'm sorry I let her come between us." "Marcus, no, let me finish," he said. "I was so caught up in proving I was a man, I forgot the woman who taught me how to be one." I felt tears rolling before I could stop him. "Baby," I said soft, "you were never less of a man for loving wrong. You only become less when you stop learning from it." He nodded, looking out of the yard. "You ever think God let it all happen to humble me?" "Oh, I don't just think it, I know it. But humble ain't bad, son. Humble means your soul's still open for teaching." We sat quiet again, listening to the crickets, and I swear, in that moment, the air felt lighter, like forgiveness was floating around us, invisible but thick enough to breathe in. Now, life didn't suddenly turn perfect after that. Bills still came, my knees still ached, and that leaky kitchen faucet still had its own mind. But the heaviness, that ache in my chest, it was gone. And baby, that's what freedom feels like. Not money, not revenge, just peace. Marcus eventually moved back to Atlanta, this time for his own business, not Keisha's dreams. He found a little apartment outside the city, modest, but every Sunday he'd still call me, same as when he was young. And you best believe he never missed a Mother's Day again. Last year, he even surprised me with a new roof for the house. Said, "Mama, it's not the wraparound porch I promised, but it's a start." I just hugged him and whispered, "Baby, you already kept your promise. You came home." Sometimes folks asked me if I ever saw Keisha again. Truth is, I did once. It was at the grocery store about 2 years later. I was walking down the aisle with my little basket, looking for flour, when I spotted her. She looked different. Tired, no makeup, no designer bag, just a plain hoodie and jeans. Our eyes met. For a second, neither of us said a word. Then, she whispered, "Mrs. Parker?" "Keisha," I said, nodding. She hesitated, then said, "I didn't realize what I had till it was gone." Now, I could have said 100 things in that moment, could have reminded her of every lie, every pain. But instead, I just said, "Baby, life's funny that way. It'll teach you the lesson after you failed the test." She smiled a sad little smile, nodded, and walked away. And you know what? I didn't feel anger. I didn't feel pity. I just felt done, like a chapter that had finally been written all the way through. These days, my mornings are quiet. I wake up early, make my tea, sit on that same porch that's seen me laugh, cry, pray, and cuss. I got my little garden, my Bible, my radio, and my peace. Marcus visits every other weekend, brings groceries, fixes things around the house. Sometimes we just sit on that porch swing, not saying much, just listening to the wind. He'll say, "You think everything happens for a reason, Mama?" And I'll say, "No, baby, some things just happen." But God knows how to use him. I guess what I learned is this. Love don't mean losing yourself. And forgiveness don't mean forgetting. It means remembering without the pain. See, when people betray you, they think they're togging something from you. But sometimes what they're really doing is handing you back to yourself. And baby, ain't he nothing more powerful than a woman who has finally come home to her own heart. When I think back on it now, that phone call, those long nights, the courtrooms, the tears, I don't wish any of it away. Because, without it, I wouldn't have learned the difference between losing someone and finding peace. So to anyone listening who's been betrayed by family, by love, by your own blood, don't you shrink? Don't you harden? Just hold your ground, pray with your whole chest, and let time do the heavy lift. You don't have to win to walk away free. You just have to walk away still you. Now, that's my story, baby. I told y'all the truth, all of it. What do you think? If you were in my place, what would you have done?